Today's date is November 23rd, 2025. We're having an Israeli Palestinian confederation simulation with Matt Duss. We are proposing a federal government for the people of Israel, Palestine, that includes the area of Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel, with 15.5 million people based on democratic principles, with a legislative branch with 300 parliament members, an executive branch with president and vice president, one Palestinian, one Israeli, rotating in 2 years, and a judicial branch with Palestinian and Israeli judges as equal. You can see the Constitution. You can read the Constitution for the federal government at ipconfederation.org. The Constitution is in 3 languages: Arabic, English, and Hebrew, and it spells out the vision of the federal government, the structure of the legislative branch with 300 parliament members, how they will be elected, and what will be their function in terms of passing legislation. In order to pass legislation, you would need 55% of the Palestinian parliament members and 55% of the Israeli parliament members to vote yes on the same legislation. And if the legislation violates the sovereignty of the Israeli or the Palestinian government, they will have a veto power and will be able to nullify the legislation. You can reach me at favasar@gmail.com. Our guest today is Matt Duss. Matt Duss is a U.S. foreign policy expert and progressive advocate, currently serving as Executive Vice President at the Center for International Policy, CIP. He previously advised Senator Bernie Sanders on foreign policy and led the Foundation for Middle East Peace. I got the impression that he still advises Senator Bernie Sanders. Matt Duss specializes in Middle East diplomacy, human rights, and U.S. foreign policy reform, frequently writing and speaking on Gaza, Israel, Palestine, and global human security issues. Matt holds a BA and a master's degree in Middle East Studies and Political Science from the University of Washington. Our next guest will be Eli Safran on December 7, 2025. He is an Israeli community leader and peace activist from Kibbutz Sasa in the Upper Galilee. On December 21st, we will have Professor Ron Newald, is a from the French National Center for Scientific Research. And on February 22nd, we will have Elijah Kallenberg and Jad Hashem. One is of Palestinian descent, one is of Jewish descent. The first and only from Atinda International, which is the first and only institution uniting Jews, Arabs, Israelis, and Palestinians on college campuses for peace building. We are demonstrating how a federal government could function and how it could make peace. And we are showing how a federal government, even though it gives a veto power to the Israeli and the Palestinian government, we are demonstrating how it can thread the needle. What does it mean, thread the needle? It means that it could pass legislation that would be beneficial to the people of Israel and Palestine together, and that the Israeli and the Palestinian governments, although they have a veto power over legislation, is unlikely to veto the legislation, because first, it would benefit the people, their people, and also, if they veto the legislation, they would lose legitimacy. That's what we call threading the needle. we're asking you to ask questions. This is a simulation. This is not a lecture. So we're asking you to ask questions. And you can use the chat feature for the questions. And if you have comments, then you can also use the chat feature. And Nasir, I hope you're here, will be translating those comments and will convey the questions. But we would like to have like a smooth simulation. So if you have if you are skeptical, or if you think if you have something urgent in terms of comment, please wait until the end, because in all likelihood, we're going to answer your question during the simulation. But if you have questions, by all means, please ask the question. This is a 2-minute short video that explains the concept of a federal government as we are proposing.
The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians has endured for generations, and instead of time healing the wounds, it's only caused the anger to fester and the violence to grow. But what if there was a way to alleviate the tension? Something that may not outright solve every problem, but at least create a forum that encourages a peaceful compromise. Welcome to the Israeli Palestinian Confederation, a common third government between the Israeli and Palestinian citizens, specifically designed to foster peace, tolerance, and economic prosperity between the two nations. Here's how it works. First off, both Israel and Palestine will keep their respective governments. Israel's Knesset and the Palestinian National Authority will remain unchanged. The Israeli Palestinian Confederation, IPC, will be a third entity acting as a unifying agent between the two. The IPC will comprise 300 parliament members elected from 300 districts in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. Above them will preside a president and vice president, one Israeli and one Palestinian. In order for the IPC to pass a law, it will require a 55% majority from its Israeli representatives, as well as a 55% majority from its Palestinian representatives, thereby preventing either side from monopolizing the legislature. Of course, the IPC won't undermine the political power of either the Israeli or the Palestinian government. At any time, Israel or Palestine may veto a law passed by the IPC. If neither side vetoes, the law is passed, and the two nations are another step closer to resolution. Please help us make this a reality. The Israeli Palestinian Confederation. We might speak different languages, but we all mean the same thing.
So we are simulating what's in this video. Before we start with the simulation, we are doing a pre-simulation survey, which we will compare to a post-simulation survey to ask the audience now, do you support a common confederation government for Israel-Palestine? Please vote yes if you support and no if you do not support. Okay. 10 more seconds for you to vote. I know some of you are not able to vote because you're using your phone or computer, but if you actually see this survey, please vote. We don't really know who voted how, so don't worry about personal ramifications in voting, but please vote. I'm going to give you another 10 seconds to vote. And okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Dan, could you please publish the vote? We have 31 out of 32 voting yes, and 1 out of 32 voted no. And so 97% voted yes, and 3% voted no. All right. A lot of you voted yes because you've been in the simulations several times, and you understand what the federal government, how it will function. So I do not expect that the general population in Israel, Palestine will be so receptive to the idea as we have in this pre-simulation survey. Confederation and federal governments exist worldwide to address specific conflicts. Some governments refer to themselves as federal governments, while others use the term confederation. Definitions are not fixed and evolve with changing realities. In the context of Israel-Palestine, the IPC defines confederation and federation as a shared government for the people of Israel and Palestine, guided by democratic principles outlined in the IPC Constitution, which can be found at ipconfederation.org. That's the Constitution that I showed you at the beginning of the meeting today. So this is the heart of the simulation, and we are asking you to make certain assumptions. Remember, this is a simulation. It's not a lecture. So we need to make assumptions. So the first assumption is that we were able to obtain $100 million and we were able to spend it on a year-long campaign promoting the election. That means that we were able to have a campaign to create an election platform, that we were able to recruit Palestinians and Israelis to offer their candidacy to become parliament member or president or vice president, and that we were able to make the people of Palestine and Israel aware of the election and to create a discussion. So, and the ability for 15.5 million Palestinians and Israelis together the right to vote. That's, you have to assume that we have given 15.5 million people in Israel, Palestine, excluding children, in the West Bank and Gaza and in Israel, the right to vote. You will also have to assume that 5 million people actually voted, that 3 million Palestinians voted, and 2 million Israelis voted. This is part of what we are assuming for this simulation. We're saying, let's assume that all these assumptions have been met. You'll have to assume that the president received 2 million votes and the vice president received 1.5 million votes. You'll have to assume that me, Joseph, was elected as president and a Palestinian lady was elected as vice president. So that it's clear, I never intend to run for president. I'm not even qualified under the Constitution because I am not a resident of Israel, although I am in Israel right now, but I'm not a resident of Israel. You will also have to assume that 300 parliament members were elected in 300 districts. That's in the area of Gaza, the West Bank, and in Israel. Each district has 51,666 people. So if you divide 15.5 million by 300, you'll get 51,666,000. So each parliament member represents 51,666 people in his district. Before I turn to Matt and ask him if he has questions or comments, let me ask the audience, do you have any questions regarding these assumptions? Audience, please ask your questions now. If you have a question to clarify what the assumptions that we are making, please ask it now because it would help us explain the concept. Okay, Charles, please ask your question.
You're acting as the president just as a means of facilitating the
Correct.
the simulation, correct?
Correct. Yeah, this is a simulation. I am acting as president in order to facilitate the simulation. Any other questions? Okay, hearing no questions, let's turn to Matt. Matt, do you have any questions or comments regarding these assumptions?
No, first, let me just thank you for inviting me. I'm really glad to be a part of this conversation, this simulation. One question, and again, I think we covered this a little bit in an earlier conversation, but just to clarify that these elections, this year-long campaign is coming in the context of an already made agreement determining, like a peace agreement, or is that not part of the simulation?
It's not part of the simulation, and it's not part of the the way this federal government will be
Okay.
created. It would be created regardless if there is a peace agreement between Israel and Palestine, whether there is or there isn't. It's immaterial on whether they have agreed on a two-state or anything else.
Okay.
It's
So
a
we could,
totally independent track of the Israeli and the Palestinian
okay.
internal or politics.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other question?
No.
Okay, Sir Beth Lavalle, please ask your question. You need to unmute, please.
I
You
think
need to
it's
unmute.
Sister Beth. Sister Beth needs to unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I turned the mute on. This is all new to me. I didn't know, I didn't read it thoroughly, but I'm fascinated by this concept. But I have to tell you, my block to the whole thing is about the repair of Gaza. I mean, I can barely think about this. Who's going to be repairing all of this country?
Well, we think that the federal government could do the repairs, and we're actually going to be presenting a legislation. But before we repair, we need to have the election. We have to have parliament members elected and getting their legitimacy from the people, at which point we will be able to uh, uh, attempt to repair all the issues, not
All right.
only Gaza, not only the West Bank, all issues.
Okay, thank you. That is making sense. The more I just keep listening, I'm fascinated. All
Sure.
right.
Angela?
Yes, you can hear me okay, I hope.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify, Joseph, that when you say $100 million was just spent on a year-long campaign promoting the elections, does that include registration for voters? And if so, how do you see that would happen? Through the government registries or an independent setup so that people over a certain age would be registered in a different database?
Yeah, they will be able to register online. That includes the $100 million. They'll be able to use their phone, their computers, their friends' phones, their friends' computers, and the election will take place not one day, but 3 months at least. And under the Constitution, if a district has not yet elected a parliament member, then the election for that district will continue indefinitely until they elect a parliament member. Any other questions? Louisa?
Yes, thank you for taking my question. And I apologize for not being on camera. My iPad is too old. But about the assumption of 5 million people voting, 3 million Palestinians and 2 million Israelis, could you explain your reasoning behind those numbers?
Well, it's just a gut feeling based on doing these simulations many times. We noticed that Palestinians are a lot more receptive, and Israelis are less receptive to this idea. But we are not saying that this is a scientific number. We are just saying, assuming that we will be able to reach 5 million people to vote, would that make a significant change? So we're not claiming that this number will be achieved. It may be more, it may be less, But just like any democracy, no democracy in the world had its first election knowing how many people are going to vote. We are just saying, if we get that number, would that make a difference? Hi, Alan. What's your question, Alan?
The districts, the 300 districts, how are they actually put together? You have each representing a specific, an equal number of people, but in some way that seems that they are kind of independent of geography and boundaries of community and so on. Besides the number of 666 being a little creepy, it would seem that districts have to have some location in relation to the actual geography or the character of community. How is that actually done? And do the district people have some way of saying, I'm in this district rather than that? Or is this just something that's going to be worked out in that year? And I'm premature in asking it, but it does seem that the districts have to be grounded in the character of the land and the communities and the interactions that actually exist.
Each Palestinian and each Israeli has an identity card, and the identity card would be helpful to know where they are, what is their residence. But they will also, when they register to vote, they will put their residence, and once the residence is identified, then that would be their residence. It's really a technical question, but you asked how would the district would be created. It's mostly by computer algorithm. Tom? Oh, sorry. Okay. So at this time, I'm going to be asking you, the audience, since this is a simulation, to act as either Israeli or Palestinian parliament member. Remember, many of the district will be mixed district. In other words, Palestinians and Israelis together. For example, I was just in Area C. Palestinians and Israelis live together. Also in Jerusalem, and they live together. And also in area A and B could be attached to district in Jewish district and Palestinian district. So I'm asking you at this time, please decide whether you are a Palestinian parliament member or an Israeli parliament member in this simulation. Remember, this is a simulation. You will be asked to vote on legislation as a parliament member. I will also need someone to act as the Prime Minister of Israel and also Palestinian. Nasir, could you act as the Prime Minister of Israel?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay. And Charles, could you act as the President of Palestine?
Okay.
And I need someone to act as the U.S. president in this simulation.
Can we flip it for me and Charles? Because I did it last time twice.
Okay, so you want to be the president of Palestine?
If you don't mind. I mean, I don't have a problem, but I just did it the last two times.
Okay, all right. So Charles, you'll be the Israeli prime minister.
Is that okay with you, Charles?
Yeah, sure. Got it.
Okay. And we need someone to act as Israeli prime minister. I mean, I guess it's a slip of U.S. president. We need a U.S. president. Is anyone willing to be U.S. president in this simulation?
No, but could it be a woman?
Matt, are you willing to be U.S. president in this simulation?
I'm happy to. My understanding was that I was here to observe, not participate, which is.
How about Sean?
Yeah,
maybe
okay.
Maybe Sean.
So, are you happy to, or
Sean?
I'm glad to do whatever is helpful.
Okay.
I don't know if I could do a role of a U.S. president.
I mean, if I can do Netanyahu, you can do Trump. Come on.
Okay, so Sean will be
Okay.
U.S. president.
Okay.
What does the US president have to do with this confederation?
You'll find out. Uh, okay, let's publish the results of the parliament members.
I'll be right back.
We have 12 Palestinians, and we have 13 Israelis in the simulation. Now, if you are an Israeli president, prime minister, if you are a Palestinian president, if you are a U.S. citizen, you are not a parliament member. You're in different government, and you are not allowed to vote. All right. First order of business for us is, now that we have a president, we have a parliament, we need to ratify the Constitution. This is a short version of the Constitution. Charles, would you be so kind as to read the Constitution?
Palestinians and Israelis are entitled to equal rights under the law and guaranteed human rights and freedom. The Israeli Palestinian Confederation does not intend to supersede or supplant the Palestinian or Israeli governments, nor to abrogate or undermine any agreements between those governments. We recognize the need to work with the Israeli and Palestinian governments. Our purpose is to resolve conflicts and to expand the relationship between Palestinians and Israelis in a fair and equitable manner. We believe in equal rights under the law, guaranteed human rights, and freedom for all. We voluntarily give the legislatures and the governments of Israel and Palestine veto power over legislation we pass relating to the domain of control of those governments. We believe in the separation of power between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. We believe in the creation of a permanent secular government for all the people residing in Israel and Palestine. We believe in having a separate judicial branch relating to IPC legislation with Israeli and Palestinian judges, with a system to avoid biased decisions based on nationality.
Okay, so the bottom line here is that we do not intend to supersede or supplant the Israeli or Palestinian governments. Any agreements that they agree between themselves, that goes back to the question that Matt asked me. Whatever they agree between themselves, constitutionally, we are required to accept. And if we pass legislation that violates their sovereignty, they have the right to veto it. Does anyone have any questions before I turn to Matt regarding the Constitution? All right, hearing no questions. Matt, do you have a question or a comment regarding this is a short version of the Constitution?
Yeah, I mean, I get one question I have is, if we're not assuming a kind of peace agreement already, that this could potentially be moving forward in a situation of continuing conflict, continuing, power asymmetry. I mean, does this simulation address the fact of which Israelis and which Palestinians would be inclined to participate and what kind of outcome that might produce, or is that not part of this?
In terms of running, or in terms
of running, but
voting?
also of the conduct of because this agreement, again, as I think it's rightly assumed, and I think the documents and the information you've shared, that this involves, the Israeli government and the Palestinian government giving up some measure of power, not sovereignty, but some measure of power to empower this parliament. Maybe my question isn't being clear.
Yeah, no, we're not assuming that the Israeli, we are actually claiming that the Israeli and the Palestinian governments are not giving up any powers. They can still act the way they want whether to make peace or make war, whatever they decide. We see them as the problem, not as the solution. We believe in creating a federal government because they are a problem, not able to give peace. So there is no requirements that they will agree between them or that they will agree to create the federal government independent of them. We believe that this federal government could be created regardless of whether they agree or not. I don't, if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, any other question? Louisa, did you raise your hand or yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I
Louisa.
did. And I want to just preface my question on the fact that this is my first time participating in this simulation. So please forgive my ignorance. But in looking at what we're doing here, my question is, how does this relate to, or does it relate to, the question of the establishment of a Palestinian state? Thank you.
Well, we are not a Palestinian government, and we are not an Israeli government. We are a federal government for the whole area. Now, the federal government could determine that it is best to create a Palestinian state or an Israeli state. The federal government could determine that best way to move forward towards peace is to have a border. But we are not predetermining the existence of any state, and it's not required to any state. As far as we are concerned, these governments are the problem. They are not the solution, but we are dealing with them because they exist rather than because they are necessary for the region. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
All right.
Joseph,
all right.
there's another question in the chat, and it talks about whether or not the Constitution recognizes international law and recognize international law as to finding solutions, or is it not at all relevant to this?
The Constitution, just like any other democracy, does not speak about international law. We create our own laws, and we could have legislation that would adopt certain laws or decide by the federal government, the parliament, that they want to unilaterally accept international law. But usually international law is so vast that it doesn't really make sense to say whatever international law is, it's part of our Constitution. I'm not familiar with any democracy in the world, including the U.S. democracy or the Israeli basic laws or the Palestinian basic laws, that said we are accepting international law as part of our basic laws.
I have a question, please, if it's
Yeah.
okay. Let's say they will have to handle money. How do you say תקציב? They need a large. They need their own, in order to operate, they need to handle resources, economical resources.
Correct.
Where do the economical resources come from? And, for example, if they decide to freeze, I'm not even saying evacuate, but let's say to freeze settlements, so they will have to force the Israeli government for how is power, how do they exercise power? How do they force anything to happen?
Okay, so basically you're asking two questions about funding for this government.
Yes.
We believe that that once we have the election, the federal government will have huge political power that will be able to achieve funding internationally, but then subsequently will be able to pass legislation to tax, just like any other government, to tax the people of Palestine and Israel in order to help maintain the federal government and its institutions and to enforce the laws. We are not thinking of a second-class government. This would be a first-class government, given that will have legitimacy from the people of Israel and Palestine. And if the people of Israel and Palestine vote for it, then they will have to comply with the laws, including taxation. If we get the 5 million voters or less, then we will have the legitimacy to demand taxation. Also, there are other techniques to obtain taxation, such as, and we have done that. We have legislation on taxation that requires the Israeli and the Palestinian government to contribute about 3% of their taxes to our government. But we're not dealing with that legislation. With regard to the settlements, in order to pass legislation regarding the settlements or any other issue, it will necessitate the Palestinian and the Israeli parliament members to pass that legislation. And if the legislation violates the governments of Israel or Palestine, they will have a veto power over that legislation. If they exercise the veto, then the legislation does not pass. All right. Let's go to the parliament member and ask you to ratify the Constitution. Parliament members, you have to ratify the Constitution, just like in any other democracy. If you do not ratify the Constitution, you will be expelled from the parliament, and the person who received the second number of votes in your district will be elected parliament member. So Palestinian parliament members, please ratify the Constitution. Palestinian parliament members only ratify the Constitution. Okay, publish the votes. 11 people, 85% ratified the Constitution. The 2 people that did not ratify the Constitution, since you did not accept the Constitution, you are expelled from the parliament, and therefore you will not be able to vote, because the Constitution is the basic agreement for all the parliament members to accept. So you will not be able to vote, but those who accepted the Constitution will remain in the parliament and will be able to vote. Let's have the Israeli parliament members please vote. Israeli parliament members. Now remember, you are accepting what's in that Constitution. You understand that we are giving a veto power to the Israeli and the Palestinian governments on issues that violates their sovereignty. So when you accept that, you accept the idea that we will not be able to pass perfect legislation. Please publish the vote. 100% of the Israeli parliament members voted to accept the Constitution. And let's go to Matt. Matt, do you have any comments regarding what you've seen up to now?
I don't. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's go to. So this is a momentous occasion in the history of the Middle East, Israel-Palestine. There's never in the history of Israel-Palestine a constitution that's separate between, or any constitution for that matter, has ever passed for the entire known history of Israel-Palestine. So this is a huge, momentous occasion that we are happy about, we are excited about, because we have achieved something that was never has never been achieved in the history. So congratulations to the parliament member and to us for being able to achieve that with a investment of $100 million. The fact that we passed the legislation, the Constitution, and the fact that we elected a parliament member and a president undermine the existing government's use of fear and hate to justify their actions. In other words, we have proven to the whole world that a democracy is a possibility in Israel Palestine, and that we should not be afraid of each other, but work with each other. It removes the collective stigma against Israelis and Palestinians that we are here only to fight each other, and that we are incapable of having a democracy, that a full democracy with separation of government and religion. It provides us, the politicians, I'm the president and you are the parliament member. It gives us huge political capital that we can spend all over the world, and it compels the governments and organizations to contribute to our success. Contribute politically, economically, and any other way. It gives the Israelis and the Palestinians new self-image that we are moving forward towards peace based on democracy, and proves that Israelis and Palestinians are not a monolithic society. So congratulations. This is a momentous occasion in the history of the Middle East. All right. Now that we have a constitution, let's pass the first legislation, which is granting a veto power to the separate government. Charles, would you be so kind as to read the legislation? Charles?
Yes. The Confederation is the government of the entire population of Israel and Palestine from the river to the sea. We recognize the Palestinian and Israeli governments are seeking their cooperation to implement our vision for peace by giving them a veto. We will do our utmost to satisfy the essential needs of each government. We are pleading with the Palestinian and Israeli public to understand that while we would like to pass the best legislation possible to improve their lives, under these constraints, a perfect legislation is not possible. We hereby bestow a veto power relating to legislation affecting sovereignty to the following: the government of Israel on issues in which it is indispensable, the Palestinian government on issues in which it is indispensable. In the event of changes in the entirety of the Israeli or Palestinian governments, this legislation may be amended or repealed subject to the IPC Constitution. The Parliament will decide on indispensability in each case. Vetoes may be bestowed individually or collectively.
So we give a veto power to governments that can block us from implementing the legislation. If they can block us, then they are indispensable. So if we pass legislation relating to the use of land or police force or removal of the wall, they are indispensable and they get a veto power. But if we pass legislation regarding our own budget or ratifying the Constitution or appointing judges or ministers, they are dispensable and they don't get a veto power. The reason we give a veto power is to give a safety net to both sides, Palestinians and Israeli, in terms of the public and in terms of recruiting and having parliament members and president and vice president running. Because a veto power increases the likelihood of Israelis and Palestinians' participation. It decreases the Israeli and Palestinian government's opposition to the federal government and removes any claim that the IPC has subversive intentions and give legal protection to the candidates. It compels the IPC to thread the needle to find the least objectionable legislation and creates a platform for negotiation with the deadline. Does anyone have a question regarding the veto power before we turn to Matt? All right, hearing no questions. Matt, do you have any comments or questions regarding this legislation we are about to pass?
No, I'll have a question probably after. Thank you.
Okay. Let's have the Palestinian parliament members please vote on this legislation. We need 55% of the Palestinian parliament members to vote on this legislation. Now that you are a parliament member and you accepted the Constitution, you can vote the way you want. It's a democracy. The only requirement is that you accept the Constitution. All right, publish the vote. 100% of the Palestinian parliament members accepted the Constitution. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Again, we need 55% of the Israeli parliament members to vote yes in order to pass this legislation. Again, this is a democracy. You accepted the Constitution, and you're free to vote the way you want on any legislation. However, you have to act within the Constitution. Publish the vote. 90% of the Israeli parliament members agreed with this legislation. So this is the legislation for a veto power that would be our guidelines for future legislation. All right. This is the first legislation relating to the specific issues that we are facing today. Establishment of an IPC police force in Area C. Charles, would you be so kind as to read the legislation about Area C?
Establishment of an IPC police force in Area C. Background. Area C in the West Bank is under full Israeli control and home to around 300 to 400,000 Palestinians and 400,000 Israeli settlers. Clashes between them occur frequently, and there is no neutral police. Only Israeli forces operate, mainly to protect settlements and enforce Israeli law. Legislation. 1. Create a neutral police force to serve Area C in cooperation with the Israeli military, with full authority to arrest and search suspects under Israeli or IPC law. Arrested individuals will be subject to the applicable Israeli or IPC legal procedures. 2. Establish police stations throughout Area C, staffed with officers fluent in both Hebrew and Arabic, and equipped with state-of-the-art tools and vehicles to patrol sensitive areas. 3. Set up a dedicated hotline linked directly to the police stations, with an equal number of Palestinian and Israeli officers answering calls. 4. Deploy rapid response teams made up of both Israeli and Palestinian officers who will jointly handle incidents on site to ensure fair and balanced intervention. 5. Maintain equal representation of Israeli and Palestinian personnel at all levels of the police force. The government of Israel is hereby granted veto power over this legislation. The Palestinian government administering the West Bank is granted consultative status.
All right. Does anyone have any questions regarding this legislation?
I have a question, actually.
What is your question?
What is the difference between granting a veto power to the government of Israel and the consultative status of the Palestinian government?
Well, Area C is under full control of Israel. It has, under the Oslo Accord, they divided the whole area into Area A, B, and C. Area C, Israel has full control. It encompasses 60% of the West Bank. And in reality, the Palestinian Authority or government has no jurisdiction whatsoever over Area C. There are clashes there almost daily and violent clashes. And the Palestinians don't have a police force to turn to to call whenever there is a clash, when there were, so we are giving the Israeli government a veto power because they are in control, but the Palestinian Authority, since it does not control, it only gets a consultative status, which means it will be able to give us advice on the implications of this legislation relating to Area A and B.
Okay, I understand.
The issue, Joseph, also is that some of the clashes that are happening are not just limited to Area C. Area B, such as Tormas Haya, Deir Debwan, Mukhmas, and these areas are actually in Area B. They're and also like even Area A, where you have the east part of Ramallah Al-Bira district that has also been having clashes as well. I think that it's problematic to say that the Palestinian government administering, because you may mention Oslo, but remember Oslo was supposed to be a 5-year period where it would wait until Palestinians got their independence. And the fact that Palestine has been recognized by every significant country in the world other than the United States on what's based on the 1967 borders, this kind of sets a permanent status for Area C. And I mean, I'm the Palestinian president here, and I would object to that. To refer to us as a administrating government is insulting, and we have to have jurisdiction over our territories completely. And if it doesn't include a transition from removing these Nemetz presence of these radical settlers and a time frame and dealing with them as criminals, as terrorists, which they are, then I'm just telling you in advance, I'm going to veto this.
Well, you don't have a veto power over this because we can implement this legislation whether or not you veto this.
So
you're not even given a veto power.
Your opening speech was you are not to replace or interfere with the government of Israel and Palestine, but you're basically just you're sidelining Palestinian government, and you're basically
Correct.
Implementing this.
Yeah.
So therefore, you need to change your constitution and say that you are trying to overthrow and replace the governments.
No, that's not the case. The Palestinian government has accepted the fact that they have no jurisdiction over Area C. If they decide...
The Oslo Accords were done 30 years ago. It was for a 5-year interim period. You're not going to come 35 years later and say that we don't have jurisdiction over land that we've declared independent on, and it's been recognized by every country in the world that matters, except the United States. Unacceptable.
It may be unacceptable, and
actually, I have to interrupt. Actually, we didn't accept. We forced to. Yasser Arafat forced to do that without his consultant. And as a Palestinian, we know the history. And for me, yeah, it's not acceptable to hear that. For me also.
Well, it's not whether or not it's acceptable. It's whether we are the federal government of the whole area. The question for us is, can we implement legislation without, can your government block us from legislation? And the answer is, with regard to Area C, since the Palestinian government has agreed not to be part of, not to have jurisdiction over Area C, and it does not have any military or police or present in Area C, therefore they cannot block us.
So basically,
you said something about being insulted, okay?
Yeah, the Confederation is basically recognizing the annexation of Area C. So I don't see a reason to participate.
We are recognizing reality. The reality is that there are 400,000 Palestinians who are being subjected to attacks by Israelis on a daily basis. The Palestinian government has decided not
What citizenship do these 400,000 Palestinians hold?
they hold Palestinian citizenship.
Okay, so you're telling
And
me
Palestinian
that
ID, green
they're
ID.
they're holding Palestinian ID. So this is not an Israeli problem. This is a Palestinian one, and Palestinians should be allowed to rule over jurisdiction where their citizens are. You're basically setting up
Okay, so you're saying
extraterritoriality.
since they are Palestinian citizens, then the government of Palestine in the area that it should have a veto power. That's what you're
Yes.
saying.
Yes, it's
Okay,
jurisdiction over
all right.
it's a
Okay,
jurisdiction
so
over their land, and it's also, like I said, this is basically extending annexation. This is annexation to us. It's unacceptable.
all right, so that's it's not a major issue. Then I will change this as you suggested.
Can I make a comment to this, Sarah? I think what the situation that basically the IPC is taking a look at the status quo. All right, it's not accepting the legitimacy of the status quo, but it is trying to address the inequality, the moral inequality, if you will.
Yeah, but the problem,
status
Charles,
quo.
is
All right.
these initiatives are called band-aid solutions. They're band-aid solutions which are permanent situations. And this is the thing, is that we are handed these things that are supposed to be temporary solutions to today's problem, but these temporary solutions become permanent with us. And this is why we have to be careful. We don't trust these
any I made the change. Any other questions regarding this legislation?
Yes,
Angela, do you have a question?
Thank you. I just think it's incredibly dangerous to talk about recognizing the status quo when, for example, in Gaza, we are now seeing further colonization and separation and Bantustans and all of that. So I put in the chat there, under Oslo, Area C was supposed to be returned to Palestine by 1999. How do we handle the illegality and anarchy of messianics? The Palestinian security forces should be allowed to be in Area C as of 1999.
Okay,
otherwise, we're agreeing to a very corrupt system as the status quo, the de facto annexation, etc., even though I understand the issue of the voting, okay? But I'd just like to have international law
Roa, do you have any questions?
Yeah, actually, I have a major question from beginning, that there's nothing about recognizing Palestinian or Palestine. This is first. Second,
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the
lives...
question.
Okay, my question why is there's nothing about recognizing Palestinian or Palestine at all, like we did in Oslo.
Correct.
This is the main thing. Second, who did the constitution? Because I learned in the university, because I'm a lawyer too, that if someone have to put the constitution, have to be voted from the people.
The constitution was just ratified by the parliament.
So how we can vote in the constitution as a parliament member, but who put it at the first? Who put it?
Our organization we have been developing this in the last many years. And so do you have any specific area of the Constitution that you disagree with? Have you voted as a parliament member?
For me, I disagree with the Constitution because I didn't see anything about recognizing Palestine.
Well, it's not a constitution of the country of Palestine. It's not the constitution of the country of Israel. It's a constitution for the federal government. It doesn't preclude.
I know that, but It's have to be related to what we live right now. And if have to be related, there's have to be a term that there's a recognition of people of Palestine and Palestine, because we did it in Oslo.
Well, the Palestinian government is not precluded from passing a constitution that recognizes whatever they feel is necessary. So for the Israeli government. But we are proposing a federal government for the entire area of Israel, Palestine, not a Palestinian government, not an Israeli government, a federal government for the whole area.
Okay, then why there's Area C, Area B, Area A? It's not make sense for
Because
me, actually.
we don't have to have legislation that we can create our own legislation based on what we think is necessary immediately. I visited Area C in the last few days. I saw the Palestinians are terrified terrified of the settlers. I understood that Israel is in control, total control of Area C. So we passed legislation specifically regarding Area C. Federal governments can do that. They don't have
this
to
is not
pass legislation
exclusive.
for everything.
Okay, but this is not exclusive for Area C. I live in Area A. I live in the security square behind. I literally live behind the president, and there's army and soldiers on the square last night. So it's not exclusive for the area, actually.
Well, that's what we choose to pass legislation for. Now, if you want to, are you a parliament member?
I voted no for the constitution, so now
Okay,
I'm not.
so you are not accepting the Constitution. You're not accepting the Constitution. You're not a parliament member. If you accepted the Constitution and if you were a parliament member, you would have been able to suggest legislation. But you can't say, I don't want a Constitution. I'm not a parliament member. I'm just an observer that have objection.
I present the Palestinians' voice. I'm sure of that.
Okay, you may, but this is not a Palestinian government. It's not an Israeli government. All right, let's have voters, Palestinian parliament members, please vote on this legislation. Palestinian parliament members. We need 55% of the Palestinian parliament members to agree on this legislation. Okay. Publish the vote. 75% of the Palestinian parliament members agreed on this legislation. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Israeli parliament members. Please publish the vote. Also, 75% of the Israeli parliament members voted on yes on this legislation. So this legislation has passed. Matt, do you have any comments regarding this legislation?
Yeah, it's really hard for me to imagine a scenario in which any Israeli government doesn't immediately veto this. I mean, you're giving these officers or these, the police force the ability to, for example, arrest, Jewish settlers. Again, this is why my question of is this coming in the context of an actual peace agreement? And the answer was no, not necessarily.
Well, actually, you reminded me that I didn't ask the Israeli Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister of Israel, are you going to veto this legislation?
Yeah, yes, actually. Well, here's the way I'm looking at this. And this is where the United States comes into the picture. Under the present time, the Israeli government would veto this. If there was an American government that was did not basically give them carte blanche and run public relations cover in the international community, this could pass, and the Israeli government would be
Well, are
forced.
you acting as Israeli prime minister?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
as
wait,
Charles?
let's either veto it so we can move because I think Matt had some
Okay,
constructive things
well,
to say.
yeah, at the present time, I probably would veto this because if I didn't, my
Okay, but
electorate would
Mr.
throw
Prime
me out
Minister,
of
you are
office.
not able to curtail the violence there. Okay,
I
Israelis
understand.
and Palestinians are clashing,
Actually, he
and
can. He just chooses not to.
Yeah,
you are
my
you
support, my political support among the Israeli community would probably desert me, and I'd be thrown out of office if I agreed.
well, that's not being a leader. It's basically being about yourself. Okay. The
I'm
question
acting
is,
as the Israeli prime minister.
you have Israelis and Palestinians, about 800,000 in totality in Area C, that are fighting each other. We are giving you an opportunity to create peace, to have, and Palestinians there do not have any protection. And if you decide to veto this, I am the president of the whole area. I'm going to work hard to either ask you to change your mind or to ask the people of Israel to remove you from power, to have someone else being elected to support this.
Well, let me ask you this. Could it be arranged in such a way that the Israeli government would have you in the original proposal you said that the Palestinian Authority would have consultation status. So if there was consultation status with the Israeli government and we had synchronous control.
All right, let's move to the Palestinian president. Mr. President, are you going to veto this legislation?
Yes, I'm going to veto it. I think that the purpose of Area C and soldiers in Area C was to surround and protect the settlements temporarily until those areas were negotiated. I feel that we already have the Israeli prime minister can stop the violence tomorrow. He can just tell his army and his security forces to stop it tomorrow. We don't need legislation or a new force to go in there. What we need is Palestinians to have sovereignty over their lands and Israeli settlers and soldiers to remove off of these areas that are Palestine.
Okay, all right. Let me tell you the problem I have with your veto. First of all, you're not a legitimate president. You haven't been elected by anyone in the last 20 years. Second of all, you are exposing the 400,000 Palestinians in Area C. And I am going to work hard. I'm the president of the whole area. I'm the only legitimate president of the whole area. And I am going to call upon the Palestinian people to remove you as well as the Israeli, because you're being exposed as selfish.
So you're blaming
leaders
you're gonna blame the Palestinian government for Israel.
I am blaming you. You are vetoing
for Israelis
this legislation.
attacking and Israeli occupation. So blame the victims here.
I am vetoing.
I got you.
am blaming you. You
No,
are vetoing.
let me explain. The Palestinian Authority, is the
Palestinians.
legitimate government of the Palestinian people. The Palestinian government is the one that runs the institutions, the universities, and everything, the hospitals and the healthcare system. Despite the fact that Israel is trying to make us collapse,
government. You are not elected.
Israel is responsible for the terrorism that's going on in Area C. They can control it, just like the Palestinian Authority. Just like the Palestinian Authority controls the militants who threaten Israeli lives, Israel needs to step up and do the same for Israeli citizens that threaten Palestinian lives.
This is not the forum to blame Israel or.
Well, you're blaming the Palestinians. You just said that we are the reason for the 400,000 Palestinians that are under threat.
I'm blaming you as the president of Palestine for not willing to protect your own people. And having
that's ridiculous.
The audacity to veto legislation to protect 400,000 Palestinians. And I'm also blaming the Israeli prime minister for the same thing. I think that you're both exposed as selfish leaders do not want to protect your own people.
All right, so that means that this is a pretty realistic scenario exercise then.
I'm sorry?
I mean that, yeah, politicians are selfish and self-interested and respond to
Yeah.
like political
Right.
incentives. And if
And
we
I
want this to be a
and there
realistic
and
scenario exercise, we need to grapple with that.
right.
I think you're seeing that. You're seeing the grappling with it because, as Joseph said, his next step is going to be to point out the illegitimacy of the actions of the leaders of both governments.
All right, let's go to I'm not here to beat you to death. I'm here to expose, to try to explain the concept of a federal government. All right, let's go to the next legislation, and that is
Wait, can I
future
very
governance
quickly ask a
of
question
Gaza.
here? So we've just understood that that previous legislation is vetoed.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Yes, correct. Let's go to the next legislation, future governance of Gaza. Charles, you want to read that?
Future governance of Gaza. Introduction. The Gaza region, with a population of 2.1 million people, elected 41 members to parliament. Legislation. 1. The destinies of the Israeli and Palestinian peoples are inseparably linked. The Israeli Palestinian Confederation, IPC, provides a democratic vision for stability, prosperity, and peace. The IPC declares an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. The IPC shall launch a national reconstruction campaign to rebuild homes, roads, hospitals, civic institutions, and critical infrastructure, enabling the prompt return of displaced residents of Gaza to their communities. The IPC proclaims the restoration of law, order, and civil society as a national priority, recognizing that peace is impossible without justice and social stability. 5. The IPC shall retain authority over the Gaza Strip until a new, freely and fairly elected Palestinian government assumes power in Gaza in accordance with democratic principles. At that point, the IPC shall continue its governance of Gaza in accordance with its constitution. 6. All legislative, executive, and judicial decisions related to Gaza shall be enacted by the IPC government pursuant to the IPC Constitution, in cooperation with the government of the United States, all Arab states in the region, and the government of Israel and Palestine. 7. The IPC calls upon the international community, including the governments of Israel and Palestine, to provide a $50 billion grant to fund this urgent reconstruction and reconciliation effort. The government of Israel and the government of the United States of America are hereby granted veto power over this legislation. The Palestinian government administering the West Bank is granted consultative status.
All right. Does anyone have any questions regarding this legislation?
So again, you're taking away the Palestinian Authority's right as a state by granting them consultation. I don't know where you
No,
this new
I'm not.
terminology.
I am saying that the Palestinian government should not be given a veto power because it has no ability to block us from implementing the legislation.
You know, I don't even want to participate in this anymore, to be honest with you.
Well, you're taking it personally. We have agreed before that we will give a veto power to the government.
I've never seen the word consultative status. This is all new. So the Palestinian Authority is out of this. We're not even participating in this. So continue, but there's no Palestinian Authority there.
Look, I
I'm
don't
just
think
telling
you
you,
should make personal threats.
I'm not making
Whether-
personal threats. I'm telling you that anybody that's coming here that doesn't recognize the authority that the Palestinian people have for self-determination it's null and void for us.
But
So
you're
this
not in the legislation.
This is the same thing that the Palestinians are being faced now. The Qataris, the Egyptians, the Turks, the American, Trump, everybody wants to make decisions for us except us. So go ahead, run the world. And just leave us out of it.
No. You are misrepresenting what's going on here. Okay, this says all okay, let's go to all legislative, executive, and judicial decisions relating to Gaza shall be enacted by the IPC government pursuant to the IPC Constitution in cooperation with the government of the United States, all Arab states in the region, and the government of Israel and Palestine. Okay? But you do not get a veto power because you do not have the power to block us. Why should we give you a veto power?
Because
just to satisfy your ego.
Because 2 million of our citizens are being, this is the land of 2 million of our citizens. You're saying the United States and Israel is going to have a veto power over our future, and you're asking why we object? You're stripping away. You're stripping away. You're doing exactly what the Prime Minister of Israel wants to do. He wants to strip Gaza away to destroy any type of Palestinian unity. This is what you've been doing for 20 years, no more.
Our goal is not to satisfy the government of Israel or the Palestinian government. Our goal is peace.
Yeah, okay? you might as well make Palestine a British mandate.
We see your government and the Israeli government as a problem, not as a solution. You have not been able to give peace to the Palestinian or the Israeli people at all. You have neither one of you. Okay?
Joseph,
now you are acting all perturbed because your ego. You want your ego to be stroked, and we have stroked your ego on the previous legislation, and you vetoed it anyways. So why should we give you a veto power when when you cannot block our legislation?
Joseph, let's reword this one like we did the other one.
Yeah, but he's not saying if you reword it, I will not veto it. This whole purpose of rewording it is to stroke his ego. If he says, yeah, give me a veto power and I would not veto it, then fine. But he's not saying that. If we change the legislation to give you a veto power, will you veto this legislation?
This legislation that calls for Palestinian elections should be an election of all Palestinian people, including those in East Jerusalem, which is the reason why we haven't had elections. Okay. Because we are not able to have our people. If we cannot have all of our population,
other issues in order to satisfy your need as the president. We are not in that business. Our business, we have elected 41 parliament members in Gaza. Okay? We're not in the business of stroking your ego or the Israeli ego. Like I said, you are the problem. You're not the solution. Now, we're willing to work with you if you say that you will not veto this legislation.
We are the problem. I love this. We are the problem. Let's
blame.
Let's blame
the Palestinian people the right to vote. In 20 years, you're managing their lives as authoritarian government.
Who doesn't? Okay. Citizens of Jerusalem, which make 400,000, they're not allowed to participate in the elections. How can we have elections when our people are divided and separated by these mechanism of colonization?
You can have an election online, just like we did. We just finished an election online.
This is okay. Like I said, the Palestinian Authority is out of any cooperation with this.
All right. So will you veto this legislation if we give you a veto power?
If we don't participate, we can't veto. We have no authority, no interest in this cooperation.
Look, you can't just act as if you are being insulted. You have to make decisions for the people.
And I made a decision not to participate in this hoax called a confederation. That's what I'm saying right now.
Okay, then that's fine. So that is consistent with our beliefs that you do not have the ability to block us.
The thing is that
so let's go to the We're giving you too much time.
Okay,
Let's
that's fine.
go to
I'm just saying we have the
parliament
two
members.
authentic Palestinian people here speaking, and both of them came up with the
All
same
right,
conclusion.
let's go
So
to the parliament
let
members.
the Americans
Palestinian
and the
parliament members,
Europeans
please vote on
come up
this
with a
list.
solution for us.
Palestinian parliament members, please vote on this legislation. We need 55% of the Palestinian parliament members to vote on this, to vote yes on this legislation. Okay, publish the vote. 40% of the Palestinian parliament members voted yes. 60% voted no. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Israeli parliament members, please vote on this legislation. We need 55%. Publish the vote. 43% of the Israeli parliament members voted in favor, so this legislation passed. All right, so let's go to the Palestinian parliament members who voted no, and please give us suggestions on how to change the legislation that you will in order for it to pass. Can a parliament member, Palestinian parliament member, or Israeli parliament member, please make suggestions to change the legislation? Let's go to who voted no. Can you raise your hand, whether you're Israeli or Palestinian? Please raise your hand. Okay, Walter, what area of the legislation, are you Israeli or Palestinian?
Palestinian.
Okay, what paragraph are you not accepting?
I think we should.
And where are you from as a Palestinian parliament member?
I haven't really decided, but
well, you have to decide.
I'm just saying.
Are you from Gaza?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, as a parliament member elected by 56 in your district, you represent 56,000 people. You are not voting in favor of us obtaining 50 billion people to support your people in Palestine. Can you tell us why?
I'm just saying, Joseph, that we need to give a veto power on this one if we gave it on the other one.
Okay, so just because we have not given a veto power to the Palestinian parliament member, you're voting. You understand that your responsibility is to our Constitution.
Yes.
And your responsibility is to your district. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And so as a parliament member in our government, you want to give a veto power to a government that has no influence, no ability to block our legislation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything wrong with the legislation itself?
I don't see anything wrong with it.
Okay. So you understand that you are given power, legislative power, to another government that has not been elected, that is not being elected by the people in Gaza or in Israel. This is okay with you to give a veto power to another government?
Yes.
Okay. Any other person who voted no? Angela?
Yeah.
Are you Israeli or Palestinian parliament member?
I'm an Israeli parliament member, and I'm here in Jerusalem, where I live as an Israeli. I just think that the legislation doesn't go far enough. I think that it's a good start, but I do think that it needs refining and going into more details and realizing some of the facts on the ground, such as was referred to just earlier by Roa, in terms of Area A. I think that we need to connect Gaza with the West Bank and East Jerusalem in the legislation, recognizing it as united. You're talking about certain things that need to be done in Gaza. There needs to be a heck of a lot more. So that's my criticism. I would like to see that further developed.
All right. You're basically thinking that we can solve all the issues relating to Israel Palestine with this legislation, and you're willing to have our ability to exclude the Palestinian in Gaza from having funding to rebuild their lives because this legislation doesn't go far enough. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I agree with the legislation, but it doesn't go far enough, and therefore I would like it to be with addendas.
But you voted no on this legislation.
Sorry? That's why I
You
said
voted no.
I voted no because I don't think it goes far enough. I think
Okay,
it needs
but you said
refining.
you're saying you agree with this legislation. Okay.
As it is there, but it's not enough. That's my disagreement. It's not enough. It needs to be much more. So it's a good start.
All right, but why would you vote against something that you agree with? It just doesn't. We can come up with more legislation later, but right now we are trying to pass legislation.
Okay, just as long as you are going to be able to refer to a bigger picture reality on the ground, because at the moment the legislation is fine, it's lovely, it's sweet, but it's not as realistic as I would like it to develop into.
Okay, so as a parliament member, you have the right to submit legislation.
Yeah, and I will do so.
Okay.
Addendas, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Any other person who voted no on this legislation? All right. Let's take Alan. Have you voted no?
Yeah.
Alan?
Here I am. Yes, I'm a Palestinian from El Faham in
where?
El Faham near Megiddo in northern Israel by the Galilee. And I believe.
So you're Israeli. You're not Palestinian.
I'm.
El Faham is in Israel.
I'm here.
You're not a Palestinian parliament member. You are Israeli parliament member.
I signed up here as a Palestinian. I can be anything I want. I'm telling you.
You can do anything you want, but you have to identify where you are. You can't say I'm a Palestinian because all people who have Israeli citizens, regardless of their language or religion, are Israeli parliament member. You cannot be a Palestinian parliament member if you have an Israeli citizenship.
Well, this is a simulation, so it seems like I could be anything I wanted.
And Joseph, you're wrong.
But if you want me to be an Israeli voting no, I would also vote no because I believe
what's the reason you're voting no?
I believe that the Palestinian people need a sense of governance that includes all the people, and that the West Bank should not be separated from Gaza, which was the question in this other area C, and that Gaza should not be treated as separate from the entire Palestinian nation that has a role in that, and that the confederation should want to have the Palestinian government, as good as it is or as failing as it is, fully cooperative.
All right. So let me get it straight. You are a parliament member in the federal government, and you are voting to preclude the Palestinians in Gaza from having $50 billion grant because you want another government, a Palestinian government, to be created. Is that your rationale?
I want the unity of the Palestinian people to be recognized in whatever the confederation does.
I know, but we are not here to solve every problem in the world.
But we are.
Okay, you can create legislation for the IPC to recognize the government of Palestine or the government of Israel. It's not fair to the Palestinian people in Gaza for you to vote no to give them assistance because you have issues not related to the legislation that is being proposed. You're just dragging another issue into this legislation, and that's not fair to the people of Gaza.
Okay, well, I believe all the questions are connected, but I hear what you're saying.
All right. Okay, let's take a vote again.
I would like to hear what Matt has to say about
I don't see any other. Let's have the Palestinian parliament members please vote. Again, Palestinian, do you support this legislation? Palestinian parliament member. Publish the vote. 57% of the Palestinian parliament members voted yes on this legislation. It passed the Palestinian parliament. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Israeli parliament members, please vote. Publish the vote. 60% of the Israeli parliament members voted in favor of this legislation. Let's go to the Israeli Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, are you going to veto this legislation?
Well, if we can get $50 billion out of it, okay, no, I won't veto it.
Remember, you basically demolished Gaza, okay, and you have no ability to bring it back to life. So are you gonna let's go to the President of the United States. Mr. President, are you going to veto this legislation?
Well, in my great allies with Israel, I'm sorry? As Israel as our great ally, as the President of the United States, yeah, I would veto this because this is not with Israel's interest, and I think this is not a good approach to handling peace.
So you are just acting as the agent of Israel.
Israel is our good allies, and we're looking after Israel's security. So any of this is not in our interest either. So yes.
Do you see this legislation as contrary to Israel's interest?
Yes, because this is compromising Israel's safety. Because Israel deserves to, has the right to exist, has the right to defend itself.
And how is that contradict Israel's right to exist or defend itself?
I think Gaza should be, I think, with okay.
Let's go to the Prime Minister of Israel. Mr. Prime Minister, are you going to veto this legislation? Just say yes or no, and not much thinking. We need to move on. Charles.
Oh, me. Oh.
Yes, you're the Prime Minister of Israel.
Yeah, I already said that if you can raise $50 billion, I will accept this.
You accept it, okay. Yeah. Mr. President, now that the Prime Minister of Israel accepted it, will you remove your veto?
Can I ask something?
Yes.
If I understand well, Palestine and Israel are the ones that's supposed to provide the 50 billion grant. And why
is the international community?
The IPC calls upon the international community, including the governments of Israel and Palestine, to provide a 50 billion grant.
Right.
Why should Palestine pay for the reconstruction of Gaza?
Because we need the funding. That's why. Why should the country of Algeria pay for? We have the political power to demand money. And we need funding, and we're going to everyone, including the government of Israel and Palestine.
As the president of the United States, the $50 billion should be from
Are
Palestine.
you going to veto this legislation?
Me, yes.
Mr. President.
Yes, I'm going to veto this because I don't think the IPC should interfere and only let Israel.
Okay, so you have your forces here in Kiryat Gat, okay, and you want. Why do you have your forces in Kiryat Gat near Gaza? You have an intention to take over Gaza? Is that why?
As the president, I would occupy Gaza with Israel.
Okay, so this is being made clear to the world that you want to take over Gaza. That's why you have your forces in Kiryat Gat, 20 kilometers from Gaza,
and it's for Israel's safety.
I know that's your excuse, but in reality, we have an option here to rebuild Gaza, and you're not interested in that. You just want to grab the land of Gaza.
I think because Hamas created this problem, created this war, and they should be held responsible. So yeah,
I understand that. I understand that. But we have an option here. We have a federal government, that democracy that was elected by the people of Gaza and Israel, and we are asking for your assistance to help us rebuild. And you're not interested in, but you were interested in giving weapons to Israel to destroy Gaza.
I think Israel should defend itself, and only peace can come if Hamas puts down their weapon and then comes and talks to Israel on the table, and then that's when peace can go forward. No IPC, no other third party can do anything.
So unless, I am the president. I am going to go to the American Congress and to the Senate and to the American people and demonstrate to them that there is a way to create peace and to resolve issues, and that you are not willing to and you're actually putting American forces in the region in order to grab land in Gaza.
We stand with our great allies Israel.
All right.
Not you or anybody can do anything about it.
All right. Thank you. All right. Matt, do you have any, can you comment about what you've been seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it seems that, the challenge here is that this is going to simply reproduce existing power relations. I mean, if the goal ultimately is to create a space to build trust and promote genuine peacemaking and coexistence, as I understand it is, um, I think some of the disagreements and discussions we've been having about, okay, what authority does, the Palestinian government have here? If Israel and the United States have a veto, again, like I said, it just seems to reproduce the existing asymmetry, which is part of the problem. So I guess I just
that was exactly my point. Thank you. That's why I said I stepped down, because it's replicating everything that's wrong with the international system towards Palestinians.
Well, Matt, let me ask you this. Do you think that it is possible to we'll go to that. Let's go to the next survey, and then we'll have an open discussion. After participating in this simulation, do you support a common federal government for the people of Israel and Palestine? Please vote. Okay, 5 more seconds to vote. Publish the vote. 15 out of 19 voted yes. 4 out of 19 voted no. 79%. It's a lower percentage when we started. So I guess because of the failure of the legislation, people have changed their mind. Let's stop sharing and let's go to Matt, if you have some comments to make before we ask you questions.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll just kind of repeat what I said earlier, and I think it reflects some of Nasir's concerns as well, is that if the a confederation as described here, if it's going to try to make decisions that can be vetoed by both sides. I mean, what we're talking about is who gets power, and operating in a system where one side overwhelmingly has the most power and has really no incentive to give it up. It's hard to see how a body like this could function effectively.
How would the one side have overwhelming power in this structure?
Well, because the Israeli government has overwhelming power over all of the land right now. I mean, that is the reality.
Okay, but it's given a veto power similar to the Palestinian government on issues when it is.
Right. But again, I mean, the Palestinian, I mean, so what? I mean, they can both veto it, but the reality is that in terms of just actual brute force, Israel, has there's a massive asymmetry, and I guess we can say pragmatically we need to deal with that reality with a body like this. But again, part of my concern, as I said, is that we seem to just end up reproducing and reaffirming those asymmetries.
We have asymmetry in the United States. You have a state like California
Hmm.
with two senators and 39 congresspeople, and you have a state like Wyoming with two senators and one congress. And the United States is able to function despite the asymmetry. Why would it not be able to
I
function in
would,
Israel, Palestine?
I don't know which United States you've been watching. I would argue that we're actually not. Our politics is in very dysfunctional and getting more dysfunctional by the day. I don't want to overstate it. Um, but again, I
Well,
think
I'm watching the Federal Library, which I visited frequently, has multiple legislation and statutes that have been passed by the federal
right.
government.
I understand that, but I mean, again, just I don't want to belabor it. I, you have an Israeli government that has an interest in, consolidating total control over all the land. It is doing that in various ways and through various means. If you don't have a body with the actual ability to stop that, if you don't have a meaningful constituency inside Israel to stop that, which right now you don't, it's unclear to me how, an IPC could lead to a better outcome.
Have you taken into consideration the assumptions that 5 million people have voted? And would that not have huge political power if we have 5 million people voting, a lot more than the
Yeah.
Israeli election, a lot more than the Palestinian government? Would a federal government with 5 million voters have political power to play with, to use?
No, I think that's a fair question, but what is the mechanism through which that kind of political shame or that political pressure is mobilized? Right? That's my question
The,
there.
the mechanism is the parliament and the election.
Okay, so if the Israeli leader or the Palestinian leader, again, vetoes legislation and supporters of this confederation don't like that, they can then turn them out of office. So that's the answer to that.
They can shame them.
Okay.
Isn't that what democracy is all about? Isn't it's about shaming the each other? That you see that in the American politics all the time. A certain senator says, "Can you imagine what the other senator is doing? He's precluding Americans from getting health care, from getting food stamps, from et cetera, et cetera. That's really a shaming game in
Yeah,
democracy, and it's
and I
illegitimate.
again, I would just say, like, pointing to the United States as an example of that is does not seem it doesn't seem to be demonstrating that argument right now. I mean, people, the amount of, I mean, shame doesn't really get you very far in American politics or in democracies in general, as far as that I've been able to tell right now.
Okay, so what does get you moving in democracy, if not
Right,
shaming?
losing an election. So I guess that's the question. That's what motivates politicians.
All right, so losing an election could also be
Hmm.
in this election.
Hmm.
I mean, why would a parliament member from Gaza, from Israel, have a different interest than a congressperson or a senator from Maine? Isn't that the same game that is being suggested in both political systems?
I suppose. I don't know. I want to let other people weigh in here.
All right, let's have other people weigh in it. Charles, go ahead.
I have a question for Matt. In when it came down to whether something was going to pass or not, uh, in my calculation, in the back of my mind, even as the Israeli prime minister, the American politics echoes large, or overwhelmingly, one might say. So, my question to you is, since you advised Bernie Sanders to this effect, um, we have a similar kind of a situation in the United States right now where it seems like the majority of the people are going or want to go in one direction, but our politics is held captive going in another direction.
Hmm.
And my question to you is, do you see the chink in that armor? Is there a way out of this conundrum?
Are you
Uh,
talking about the
Well,
American politics?
yes, because the Israeli politics are going to go the way of American politics. That's my thesis. You know, you can argue with it if you want, but my feeling is that as long as an American president has the back of someone like Netanyahu, whether it's him or somebody else, they're not going to do shit,
mhm.
right? So we have to cut that pipeline.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen until we change our politics. So how do we do that?
So you're asking specifically about a U.S. president who would put the necessary amount of pressure on an Israeli government to change policy.
How to, or what mechanisms we use to
Yeah.
regain power and eventually the presidency.
Right. I mean, I think I'll just answer that very quickly. I mean, we're seeing a lot of changes within the Democratic Party around these issues, on the Republican Party too, by the way, that's happening very, very quickly. So it's not hard for me to imagine right now having, I think Joe Biden will probably be the last president who had that kind of, let's call it, a traditional kind of pro-Israel democratic view. I don't want to overstate the transformation. It happens very, very slowly, but the Democratic Party is really shifting on this. Now, would a president, if we have a Democratic president in 2028 taking office in 2029, I think the question is, would they be willing to, and what amount of political capital would they be willing to invest in, a better policy? And I think there's some reason for optimism, given that this issue is kind of a litmus test for, left Democratic voters. Um, but again, it would be a tall order. This is going to remain a pretty touchy issue, in American politics, and it also depends on what Israeli government we have. If there's one like we have right now, which we very well might, because Netanyahu seems intent on never ever going away. That would require a U.S. president willing to really invest a lot of time, energy, and political capital into that fight.
So
Um,
nothing in the short term on this issue of
Yeah.
Palestine
In
in
the
the
short term,
American
I see
policy.
very little hope. Although Donald Trump does tend to surprise people every once in a while. But in general, I think, you know, Witkoff
Matt,
and Kushner. Go
I
ahead.
have a question for you. The U.S. government is based on separation between government and religion. Why would a government that believes in separation between government and religion support a Jewish Israeli government that integrate government and religion?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, separating of church and the state is a contested notion even in the United States. There's a lot of people, particularly in the Republican Party today, who believe the United States is and should proclaim itself to be a basically a white Christian nation. So yeah, the founders had an idea about the division of the separation of church and state, but again, that is heavily contested, and that is even before you get to kind of international relations. That, you know, in foreign policy there's all kinds of double standards and tensions and hypocrisies in the relationship we have, not just with the state of Israel, but with other countries in the region and indeed around the world who define themselves in ways that Americans disagree with.
But the U.S. Constitution separates between government and religion. The Supreme Court endorses that. There is no real movement in America to integrate government and religion, but yet they go and support a Jewish government in Israel Palestine, contrary to their own beliefs.
Yeah, I'll just kind of repeat myself. It doesn't make sense, but I mean there are double standards, that happen all the time, and this is one such case.
Yeah. And why would the U.S. Believe in federal government in the United States, but not believe in federal government in Israel Palestine?
Again, it's not the business of the United States to determine other countries' politics and their political arrangements. I don't know if the United States would support or oppose it, kind of objectively. But again, going back to the problem with using the United States as an example of this stuff working is that this stuff often does not work. I mean, the Senate, the Supreme Court, the Electoral College, there's a whole range of things that were created at the founding of the United States that have not facilitated democracy. They have constrained democracy. They have blocked democracy. So I would be cautious about using, the various institutions of the U.S. government as an example of how to do it right.
But the U.S. is a heavy supporter of arms to Israel. So when you say it's not the business of the United States, it sounds like it is the business of the United States because it is so heavily involved in sending arms, and it claims to be wanting peace. So is it only the interest of the United States when it comes to arms, but not to giving Israel and Palestine the best option for the people of Israel and Palestine to live in peace?
I mean, I agree with you as just, that is my view. The United States is deeply implicated here and has the ability to produce a better policy and to affirm and support the best people instead of the worst people, which is what U.S. policy has done for decades. So yeah, I mean, we can agree here, but I mean, we also need to understand the political realities of why U.S. policy is as it has been.
And why would Bernie Sanders support two-state, which is separation based on religion, segregation, which has failed and brought so much violence? Why is he, as a senator in a federal government, has the idea of having a federal government in Israel, Palestine, have been introduced to him?
Yeah, I mean, again, he's spoken about this. People can refer to his comments for what Bernie's views are. He recognizes, as unrealistic as two states might be, it is kind of embodied in international law. But he has remained focused on ending the occupation and supporting Palestinian rights and the rights of all people, Jews and Palestinians in the land, to exist together in security and coexistence. So that's where his focus is.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask Matt a question?
Yeah. Hi, Olivia. Go ahead.
Hello, and good evening, Matt, and thank you for being with us. This is my question. Would you agree that Americans who have given, support all through the decades to Israel, that one has to really tackle the problem at its very core, that American society has got to look at the type of government it has got to look at the lobbies and their influence, and perhaps register AIPAC as a foreign agent, not as a whatever it's registered as, I don't know. But I do get the impression that this is the issue. The people that are the gentleman that you have, supported, that you worked for, Bernie Sanders, said, he said in a sort of desperate outburst what he felt. He said, it's all about money. Now, what he meant, I totally agree with him, it's all about money. What he meant was, we can't have, the Americans, you can't have a Congress, a House, and a Senate that is paid. These members, the lobbies are stuffing their pockets with money. That's why they're there. And I think this is really the core. If you read John Mersham's book, which I'm sure you have read.
Olivia, what's your question?
My question is, does Matt agree with me? If America financed a genocide, America is still financing a genocide. While we talk, people are being killed. And my question to Matt is, and somebody who's been advisor to Bernie Sanders, I know how Bernie Sanders, I know how he ticks. Well, I read what he says, I listen to what he says. And I think this is the issue. American society, and the young people are certainly starting to question what American politics is all about. As Bernie Sanders said, it's all about money. End of story.
Yeah, can I?
All right, let him.
I'm going to go ahead and answer, please.
Sure.
So yeah, I agree. I mean, the problem of U.S. policy toward Israel, I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it. I mean, there is a political perception, a cultural and religious perception on the part of many Americans. But also, yeah, I mean, as Bernie said about AIPAC, we have a political corruption problem. American politics is based on money. It's essentially a form of legalized bribery. It's an outlier among developed democracies. It's absolute insanity. So I think that, campaign finance reform is a very, very key step toward addressing a whole range of issues, not just U.S. policy toward Israel and Palestine.
All right, let's go to Michal. Michal Rizal.
Yes. First, I have a remark and a question. First of all, I want to remark on your description of the two-state solution as being a failure in itself, and by being religious oriented, and I find it totally untrue. Okay. That's one remark, and we should, if we are talking about respect, we should be respecting our options here to resolve the situation. Okay, not just because you fan one of our method, you cancel the other like this, like in a brink. I wouldn't have. And the other thing is, again, I want to understand, because it's an interesting idea that you're presenting, but it's very difficult for me to grasp the whole thing, everything that will happen. For example, there is a massacre going right now in Gaza. We are still going on bombing and starving, and we've never stopped, not for a minute. And we've been shamed. All right, we've been shamed across the globe, and it didn't move a bit. So the government, the common government, if it wants to stop the massacre, and Trump doesn't stop it too. It's going on every day, every minute right now. So it hasn't been stopped, neither by Trump. What would a common government do? How can it exercise power to stop this, for example? How would it do that?
Are you asking me, or are you asking
Yes.
Matt?
No, I'm asking you. I don't really understand how it can resolve our real problem here. I don't really
It would be the only legitimate government in Israel and Palestine. It will be able to create a common police force It will be able to create common economy. It will be able to expose the corrupt Israeli and Palestinian governments, and it will be able to move forward independently of it. It all depends if it has the power. You're saying we are captured to the failed Israeli and Palestinian government, and we are saying no. We can have a common government for the people of Israel Palestine that will have its own agenda, its own life based on representation by parliament members who are legitimately elected by the people of Palestine and Israel together. The Israeli government is not a legitimate government in Israel Palestine because it is not elected by the Palestinian people. The Palestinian governments are not elected, are not legitimate government because they are not elected by anyone, including the Palestinian or the Israeli people. A common democracy will have the power.
I understand that, but we have a huge army doing all these things in Gaza. How would a government having such as police and will not have? I don't believe that it will have the army that Israel has. So.
Well,
Hi, sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt here, but I do need to leave in just about 5 minutes. So if there are any other questions, I don't want to interrupt your discussion.
Mikhail, my question is for Matt. Can we discuss this after he leaves? But I want to ask my question to Matt since he only has 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Do you mind? Okay, thank you.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. So, hey Matt, thank you for coming in your discussion. So my question to you was when you said something that Biden will probably be the last Democratic president to be so you didn't use the word slanted, but biased toward Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you look at like the candidates, like possible, like people, I'm in California now. Gavin Newsom is our governor, and people are looking at him being a possible.
Yeah.
And Gavin Newsom has made some comments which were, critical of Israel's war in Gaza and things like that, much more than what Biden has done. However, I don't think it's sort of that Barack Obama thing. Like as soon as they get to the White House, they become a totally different person.
Right.
And as someone who's been active in activism and stuff since the 90s, it's frustrating to me that, Palestinians, especially in the US, they tend to work with people in the progressive movement, the left and the Democratic and things like this. But the thing is that I feel that right now, these people, what they've been doing for since the 60s has really not moved us far. Where I see like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey and these people who have stood up against AIPAC and are not taking money from AIPAC, they've actually introduced legislation to cut off funding for the war, for military aid to Israel, where you have people like AOC who gives us the best lip service in the world, but she constantly supports. And even in the beginning of the war on Gaza, I felt that even Bernie Sanders was hardcore on Israel, saying Israel has the right to defend itself and justifying what Israel was doing at the beginning of the war. And it wasn't until later that he started to speak out against the war. And it's this betrayal, and it's this, going up against for Israel and protecting Israel, where we see it. It's making people like me saying, you know what? If Marjorie Taylor Greene was to run for president, I think it would be the first time I actually vote for a president, because I usually try not to vote for a Democratic warmonger or a Republican one. But and I know she doesn't like us. I know she hates us. She hates us like she hates everybody. But the fact is, she's the person who's put her political career on the line, who's not taking money from AIPAC, and who's introduced legislation to stop military aid to Israel. So what is the Democratic Party doing to solve this problem? Because they always come to us with this lip service, but when they assume power, they fall in line with the rest of the ducks that are pro-AIPAC.
Yeah, again, it's notable Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene have done the things you said. They have not changed the Republican Party. I mean, they are part of a change, part of, a really interesting discussion that's bubbled up now, especially because you have younger Republicans, including younger evangelical Republicans, who are asking different questions about foreign policy and about Israel Palestine, in particular. But I don't know. I don't think you should get, like, as you said, let's understand who Marjorie Taylor Greene is. She is not an ally to people who believe in equality, who believe in real coexistence and pluralistic societies where people live as equals under the law. Let's be real about that. And, again, I understand the criticisms of AOC and Bernie. You know, I'm sorry if Bernie, he didn't say ceasefire as quickly as everyone wanted. He didn't say genocide as quickly as everyone wanted, but he is by far the most pro-Palestinian voice in the U.S. Congress, AOC as well. I mean, these people are by any definition fantastic voices on this. And I think the amount of criticism they get, which again, I think I understand it, but saying that you're going to bail on them to vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene just seems bizarre to me. It seems like, a
But
movement.
in substance, she has actually tried to stop weapons. I'm not concerned with saying who's more pro-Palestinian. I'm concerned with who's
So has
actually arming
AOC and
this
so has
genocidal
Bernie. I
state.
mean, they both.
They're voting for funding this military. You can't stab me in the heart, stab me in the stomach, and sit here and tell me that you support me. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, yeah. Again, if I have my own criticisms of some of the decisions that they've made, but trying to look at the kind of the whole scope of the work that they've done in criticizing this war and trying to stop the war and trying to stop the bombing, even if it hasn't checked every single box that you or some others might want, and then to say, well, because of that, I'm just going to walk away and vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't get that formula. I don't think that's effective activism. All due respect.
All right, Sean, you have a question for Matt? He has to go.
Just one question for Matt. You know what, with what's going on right now and with the war going on, and people are raising their voice and their pro-Palestinian voice, but right now with what they're seeing in the streets, they're pushing a law right now to silence anybody critical of Israel. And I think all these senators and all these governors of each states are making a new law that criticizing Israel, it's against the law, and that you could serve time in jail or you could be, I don't know.
Where is this?
I'm hearing that they're pushing laws that making it hard to criticize Israel. And like the APAC is now pushing more of the, like I'm hearing also that the social media, like a lot of people are saying all these pro-Palestinian voices, but now I'm hearing that they're trying to get rid of them and trying to promote more influencers on the social media to put pro-Israel propaganda.
Oh, for sure, because they know they're losing the argument. I mean, they're frantically, just trying to spend lots and lots of money to win an argument that they've already lost. I think, culturally and politically, the question is, okay, when do we see that reflect itself in policy?
I'm sure you see that at the website Track APAC to see all these politicians where they're getting their money from. And, what are they doing?
Right.
All I'm seeing now is that the politicians now and the legislators are pushing more of the anti-Israel law.
I think they are. I mean, we see evidence that the Israeli government has been supporting this at the state level.
Anthony, this is not constitutional because this is taking away the rights for people of free speech. And then I've seen people that police are coming into people's house, asking that we have a right to go. And then they ask them, do you have a warrant? And they're like, no. And they're like, oh, wow. They weren't be able to go into. But all I'm seeing is that they're spying on people and they're bringing police. They're trying to scare people because they see them that they're a pro-Palestinian. They're pro.
Right. All right. I want to.
All right,
before I go, I just want to thank you all. I really appreciate it. And this year, I hope.
Thank you, Matt.
I really appreciate your question. Let me tell. I mean, I've heard it before. I think it's a really important concern. I get where you're coming from.
Thank you.
So again, I really hope that my comments were respectful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for your generosity and your willingness to participate.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We can continue.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you, Matt.
I was gonna say let Michal. I think she didn't finish. We interrupted her because he said he wrote in the text. By the way, I don't know if everyone sees the text. He wrote in the text that he only had 5 minutes. He had to go, so that's why I kind of pushed the question up. But go ahead, Michal, if you want to unmute and continue.
It's not a new question. It's just I struggle to understand how this what leverage does the common government has in order to force us into a solution. That's into stopping the violence. That was my question, and it's not. I find it difficult to understand because the police is not comparable to a full-fledged army backed by the US and others.
Well, an army is an extension of the government. If the government loses its legitimacy, then the army also loses its power. It's not an independent force unless it's a totalitarian government. Then the army becomes independent of the government and takes over. That's the struggle in every democracy, is who has the power. It's much more important to have legitimacy from the people than the military power, because at the end of the day, the people will reject the military because they have no legitimacy. What we are proposing is a government for the people of Palestine and Israel that will have legitimacy from the people of government of Palestine and Israel, based on an election of the whole area, based on a constitution for the entire area, and acceptance of the constitution. So if we have a federal government elected by the people of Israel and Palestine, it will have the power, the legitimate power, and the acceptance and the legitimacy and the responsibility given to it by the people. It doesn't have to have military in order to implement its legislation. It may need police force, but the power comes from democracy, from legitimacy, not from military power.
Angela put something in the chat which I think is very interesting, and that is that Eurovision barred Israel from participation. And like the failure of apartheid in South Africa, I think that basically a soft power cultural approach around the world is going to force the politics inside Israel toward something like the IPC eventually. But that is really where what you just said, Joseph, about the difference between hard power and soft power is that everybody thinks hard power is the most powerful. Actually, it's the other way around.
Correct.
Can I just
Angela?
answer Charles on that and say, I'm hoping that they will bar Israel. It's in the offing that they may well, but it hasn't been decided yet. But that was my response to Michal. And I'm also hoping the mobilization of support that we had in the beginning of the assumptions will also, furnish the way to the IPC being realistic. Okay.
What was your impression, genuine impression of the simulation today? Do you think Matt it was accepting this idea? Was he perhaps ridiculing it?
No, not at all. I don't think he was ridiculing it. I think that some of his comments were the same comments that we hear often. And I think the fact that there are certain things that have been repeated in every simulation. I've done this for about 3 years now, 4 years. And I think that these consistent people bringing this up has to I feel that we have to incorporate this. I think that Roat, she brought up a very good point. I think that, like, my position is that we have to kind of bridge this gap between what's realistic for the people on the ground in Palestine as well as Israel, and how is that served? Because the way, to look at it and say, this is you have failed and you have done this and this is wrong. We do have two government agencies. We do have two governments that do run the day-to-day lives of these people and people who live under those governments and those societies, and they have aspirations. And I feel that sometimes that when we say things like that we have to be in touch with what they want and what their aspirations are. And I feel that that's something that's very lacking. And I think that it's something that is going to be an obstacle to furthering this development in the future.
Well, okay, I think you have objected to me saying that these governments are not legitimate. And you are taking that personally as if it is harmful to your identity as a Palestinian, because it's kind of like you feel strongly that your identity is connected to the Palestinian government. Am I right about this
Not
observation?
necessarily,
But it's an oversimplification. I think what Nasir is saying is that there's definitely, I mean, you can say that both governments are obstacles to peace, but it's an oversimplification to hold them equally responsible when the fact is that the PA was created as this weak sister under Israeli control, and then that has only gotten worse over the years. So
I'm not holding them equally responsible. I am saying that they are equally illegitimate. If you ask me who is responsible, I would say by far more probably the Jewish government started this whole thing. But when we speak about whether the give a veto power and how much respect to give to these governments, then they are equally illegitimate, or even they're not legitimate governments. And to try to beat around the bush and say, well, this hurts my feeling that you call the government, it hurts my identity. Your identity should not be connected to a government that is not legitimate. And if you're afraid to say that it's not legitimate, then there's something that you have to question about your identity.
Yeah, but this is totally out of touch with Palestinians. I mean, to say that you are not legitimate. Now, by who? The international community, including Europe.
By international democratic standard. Look, I met
but
many
because
Palestinians.
which is the only country? Which is the only country that doesn't recognize the state of Palestine? So you're telling me that the United States is going to set who is a legitimate government and who is not? What makes the PA?
No,
what makes
I'm
the
not
PA
saying,
more
I am
legit?
saying,
What makes the PA more legitimate than the government of Egypt or Jordan? When's the last time they had an election in Jordan?
I didn't say they are.
So are you going to say that the Jordanian government is illegitimate?
Look, I agree that most countries recognize the state of Palestine.
Okay,
okay?
But what I'm saying,
but there isn't a single government in the world that recognizes the democratic legitimacy of the government of Israel or the government of Palestine. There isn't a single government, a single entity that says those governments are legitimate democratic government.
Well, maybe legitimacy.
So Saudi Arabia is Saudi Arabia a democratically legitimate government? Because guess what? They have embassies all over the world. Oh, okay. Then nobody's legitimate. I mean, if you're telling me that
it's not
a democracy, if you're telling me a recent,
no one said that Saudi Arabia is
Joseph. If you're telling me that a recent democracy is what makes a country legitimate or not, then guess what? There is probably about 30 legitimate countries in the world. Everybody else is illegitimate.
Okay. So does that make it legitimate? Because there are, if 50 people jump off the roof, it makes it legitimate for you to jump off the roof as well?
I don't think legitimacy is going to be a functional frame in which to look at this issue. I think the there has to be some recognition of Palestinian suffering and the suffering of Jews historically in order to arrive at a common historical perspective that is able to give a common identity. I mean, when you talk about the IPC
Yeah, but
and
that's a
having,
different issue, Charles.
well, yeah, but
That's a
the
different issue.
IPC is offering a new identity to people. It's offering an identity of, equality to regardless of who you are, regardless of what your background is. So in order to get buy-in to that, I think there has to be some kind of, we have to reach out in a way that is able to that people on the Palestinian side and people on the Israeli side can look at and say, well, okay, I can agree on that interpretation of history. Obviously, it's going to be the more liberal ones in each case, but maybe that's something that we need to incorporate in our documents.
Look, I had a meeting in Ramallah, okay? And one of the people there said to me, the government, and many Israelis say the same thing about their government. You ask Michal, she'll say that the Israeli government probably is not a legitimate government. And the Palestinians are not embarrassed to say that their government is not a legitimate. They're very upset at their government. They haven't had elections in 20 years.
They're very upset with the leaders of their government, but they're not
Correct.
upset with having a government. They're not willing to say that you are not our
Fine.
government. So here's the thing: if Palestinians have elections, including the people of the East Jerusalem and Gaza, in a unified national election, then the government would continue, and people would accept it, and people want that. And even the majority of Gazans right now, when asked, overwhelmingly say they want the Palestinian Authority to come back, take over. They're not calling for Egypt or international organizations or Trump board, what do they call it, Board of Peace or whatever they're called. This is what they're calling for. So if you're questioning the leadership, yes, but as far as institution, a Palestinian government, there's no Palestinian, a significant amount of Palestinians that are saying that, oh, it's an illegitimate government, we don't want it, we don't accept it. That's just not. I mean, you're out of touch with Palestinians.
They are saying that it's a corrupt government.
Oh my God!
Palestinians are saying that.
You have okay. First of all, we have a convicted or a rapist who's in charge of the United States government. So is that now illegitimate? He's in corruption, sexual harassment, all this other stuff.
Look, when you have a government that is not elected by the people, that does not have a constitution, doesn't have separation between government and religion, doesn't have separation between the legislative and the executive, that is run by one person, and I'm speaking about both the Palestinian and the Israeli government, then tell me what is the legitimacy of these governments other than the fact that they have power over the people, that they arrest people on both sides, Israeli and Palestinian. It's kind of like,
if this is the definition of a legitimate government,
my mafia family is, don't talk about my leader of my mafia family because my feelings are hurt. But I'll talk about we have to be honest across the board.
Well, then, like I said, the Middle East, then there's no legitimate government across the Middle East because last I checked, Saudi Arabia is ruled by one person. Jordan is ruled by one person and one family mafia.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. There isn't a legitimate government across the Middle East. I totally agree with you.
Joseph, can I say something?
Yeah, sure, Samir.
The only problem is we have Samir. Can you raise your hand because we have two people ahead of you?
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
but I just quick comments. Hello.
Go ahead.
We hear you.
No, he's answered the phone. Okay,
Okay, go
let's
ahead.
go ahead, Nasir, manage this.
Alan, and then Roa. Go ahead, Alan.
Around democracy and legitimacy. It's the question I raised before about what are these districts? And democracy is really rooted in relationships among people in a locality where they know one another, understand their questions, talk together, and so on. And I'm interested in how these districts actually function to generate the commitment that comes to the National Confederated Assembly of 300 seats. And it seems it has to be rooted locally. And that is what I hope somehow can get its rooting so people begin to talk to one another around these same questions. And I do think that one of the propositions of the Confederation should be directing both for the Palestinian people and the Israeli people to get their own voices together, as well as the confederated voices of cooperation. So, yeah, the existing governments are a great failure, but really a new democracy is one that's rooted in the land and the relations of people. So you describe algorithms or something as the way to conduct these districts. I think there's got to be something that more explained or more actually human in the community interactions. Thank you. I wish that construction of the districts was clearer, and we might see how this confederated democracy is really working.
Thank you. Go ahead, Roa. Did you lower your hand? Did you want to speak?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So basically, we don't have constitution, but we have base law because we don't have a state. But we have not one first draft, not second draft. You have fourth draft for constitution. But we can't do it and we can't publish it because we don't have the recognize of a state. We are not a state. So we can't do election. We can't publish a constitution. We can't have a parliament. So actually, it's not about the government is legal or not, or it's or we have democracy or not. We are under occupation actually. So we can't move from city to city. I can't go to visit my grandmother because of the checkpoints. So if you want to talk about democracy, just give us our freedom, then we will talk about democracy. Because at the universities, at my university, we do election every year, and we are more than democracy at the universities because we have the right and we have the freedom to do that. But if you talk about the state, we don't even have a state. How we will talk about the democracy? So we have to be realistic about the real world we are living in. Then we can discussion about a lot of things. Thank you.
I agree.
I understand that perfectly. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Thank you. I just think Joseph, that we have to incorporate these opinions in this effort. But that's my opinion. Go ahead, Samir.
Yeah, hi everybody. My question is to Joseph. If you consider if the IPC thinks that the Israeli government and Palestinian governments are illegitimate, so why do you recognize them to begin with?
Because they have the power.
That's why.
Because they have the power. Look, if you walk down the street, okay, and a guy shows up with a gun and he says, you can't walk here, you need to go over there. Okay? You don't recognize his legitimacy, but you recognize his power. Okay? The same thing here. They have the power to make you go to the left or the right or do whatever you want. You recognize their power. There is a difference between recognizing legitimacy and recognizing the power. Okay?
Well, I
So
understand that, but
that's
your choice. Yeah,
but
your choice is to recognize them because of their power. Well,
exactly.
I don't agree with that. That's
And
it.
if they don't have the power, if they
I
don't
will
have
fight.
if they don't have the power, they don't stand in the street, then you don't go and say to a guy, hey, can I walk down the street, when he doesn't have the power to block you, when he doesn't have the legitimacy to block you. You only deal with him if he has the power to block you.
So you are bowing to the power. That's it. Okay.
I'm sorry?
That you are bowing to the more powerful. That's it. You're bowing to the more powerful.
We recognize those that have the power to prevent us, but we're working in a way to go on and move on without being shot. That's it.
Okay.
We do
All
that
right.
every day.
I disagree,
You do
but
that every day. You do that every day.
no,
in
not me. Not me.
Of course you
I
do.
keep fighting. I keep fighting. I keep fighting for the rights of the Palestinians to live in
Look,
peace.
I just go through checkpoints here, and the Palestinians go through checkpoints, okay, and they're being asked to show ID. I was asked to show ID. I was asked to stop and go. I did it not because I recognize their legitimacy. It's because I
you're afraid of
recognize.
them. You're afraid of their guns. Yes.
That's it.
That's you. Yeah. Okay. That's you, Joseph, not me.
You would go through.
Samir, I think you're being disingenuous. Every government excludes to itself the legitimate use of violence. And this is how they exert their authority. And if you don't recognize that, you wouldn't live very long.
Well, probably not, but
okay.
No, I don't give up. I will keep fighting just like in South Africa.
Keep fighting inside. Keep fighting in there.
No, fighting in real life. I mean,
all right.
I apply BDS. BDS is the solution here until we reach what we want: one secular democratic state. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
I'm going to say goodbye now, too. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Joseph. It's been wonderful once again. I don't think it was a failure. I think it was an example of how messy democracy is, and that's just the way it is. These are realities that people have to understand and deal with if they're going to actually understand what the IPC is. It doesn't have the force, the ability, the power to go out and make these governments disappear tomorrow or to rectify every wrong. It's a process and it's a path, perhaps.
Joseph, will you bring in? Will you make another U.S. president participant too next time?
You
I'm
love.
Asking, are you going to
love
make
that role? Okay. Well, it depends on the legislation. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
I'm not really the president. I'm just a mouthpiece for president.
All right. Thank you all so much, and hope to see you in the next
Thank you. All right.
Joseph, thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks so much.